Good to go. Awesome. Hello, y'all. Today, I am fortunate enough to be speaking with Miss Cathy. And Cathy, I'm not going to steal your thunder. Who are you and what the heck are you doing here today?
Yeah, I know you didn't want to say Fyock, but it's Cathy Fyock. I'm the business book strategist, and basically, I'm a book coach. I help folks write that book that has been on their bucket list perhaps for a long time, the book that they want to create a legacy, to grow their business, to be a calling card, to establish credibility, visibility. The list goes on, but that's what I do.
Awesome. So first question I'm going to ask you is diving right into it. So I know I genuinely believe every person has a TEDx idea worth spreading in them. Do you feel the same way about a book and an author, that every person has a book in them?
Absolutely. We all have a story. We all have learned something vital along the way, and that makes for a great TEDx talk. That makes for a great book. So I'm a big believer, as you are, Ryan.
And for those people that they know that they're going to have to write a book at some point to establish themselves as an authority figure, just because it is one of those things that you can add your credibility stack to kind of prove your authority. How do you normally talk to those clients that you work with that maybe you get on a sales call with them and they say, well, I don't really know if this is for me. I don't know if I actually have the book. And you know they do, but it's the imposter syndrome. It's their own limiting beliefs. How do you normally approach that and help them overcome that?
It totally is. I would say that most of my clients say that I don't think I'm a good writer. They say, I don't think, I'm not cut out to be a writer. I'm not sure about my expertise. I don't know. And it's some variation of that. But what I usually say is that I don't like to write either. Which is kind of odd coming from an author and book coach. I like what writing does for me, and therefore I will write. I don't consider myself a particularly gifted writer. No teacher ever said, oh, Cathy, you should write. So I'm guessing that a lot of folks out there are maybe thinking the same thing. They don't necessarily like to write, or maybe they do like to write, but it's just not the main thing they do. And I am here to convince individuals that you can write a book. You don't have to be a writer. You don't have to be a gifted writer. You do have to be a gifted communicator. And I think most of the folks I work with are that.
And I notice a lot of speakers that I talk to, they've kind of had this journey of speaking and then realized oh, you know what, maybe I should write a book. For those people that are kind of half convinced, like myself even, I know it's something that I will have to do at some point, but I don't know when's the right moment, nor do I know even how to kind of go about it, right? What advice do you have for that person that's in that position?
Well, I think it's never too late. It's never too early. So if you can devote, and this is the guideline I suggest, 5 hours a week. Now, for most folks, that's doable. Now, that's still a huge commitment because we're all busy people. But 5 hours a week I've found is what will make the book happen for you within a 6-month period. And that's what I do. I give people the tools and the information about how to craft it, how to put it together, how to think about it, and then how to carve out that time and honor that time.
Gotcha. And what do you normally get from writing a book? Not you personally, but the general you.
Oh, yeah. People, it's amazing. It is. Sometimes I say it is so magical. It's transformational. And then I think, oh, maybe I've oversold it. But then I come back to my authors once they have completed their book. It's out there, it's out in the world doing its magic. They're saying, you did not oversell it, Cathy. It is transformational. And it's obvious that it will open doors, speaking engagements, consulting assignments, bigger ticket, higher value services, but even beyond that, it does something inside of you. I think stepping into the role truly of being a thought leader, putting your words out there, committing to them like nothing else you do, it's really magical. And the process of writing and discerning what you're going to include in your book, the whole notion of crafting that book and collating the information, deciding what goes, what doesn't, that that process makes you more of a thought leader than ever before.
It's interesting you say that, because I know a lot of these thought leaders I talk to and professional speakers, they talk about that journey that they had to go on
Mhm.
for personal development that comes with speaking, and then normally next comes either writing a book or having to post content on social media, which is
Yes.
more important than ever these days. And I do you see a lot of similarities between that journey of writing a book and putting content out on social media?
Yeah, it's really all about sort of mastering your content. And content is the best marketing strategy for experts and those who want to share that information with the world to establish yourself as that thought leader. Nothing else does it like putting your content out there. And whether you do it in social media or a book or a blog, it really doesn't matter, because you can repurpose content. If you've been blogging for quite some time, one of my books is called Blog to Book. And it's basically about
Interesting.
how to take your blog posts and repurpose them into a book. So any of those things are possible because content is king.
Hmm. So you kind of touched on it right there when you talked about one of your books. I have a little bit of insight into this because
Mhm,
we've met before. But what's
mhm.
your story? How did you get to now? Not everybody becomes a multi-book author with this kind of niche specific skill set. What did that journey look like for you?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I never set out to be a book coach. In fact, my younger self would have probably laughed. But I started out in the human resources world, became a thought leader there as a consultant, and wrote my initial books there. And then I had moved away from my own firm to another firm, and I was kind of deciding what to do next. Knew I wanted to get back to my own business, but not sure exactly what. And I was approached by my chapter of the National Speakers Association. I've been a member for now more than 30 years. And the chapter president said, Cathy, I heard a rumor that you wrote one of your books in less than 6 weeks. And I said, well, actually, I've written at the time 4 of my 5 books in less than 6 weeks. And he goes, oh my gosh, do you have a process? That was the most interesting question anyone had ever posed to me because I'd been writing books, but I'd never thought about the process that I used. And I thought, yeah, I guess I do have a process. He said, would you be willing to give a program for a chapter about your process? I'm like, oh, yes. He said, but before you say yes, we have a couple of our chapter members who are working on their books. Would you be willing to coach them using your process and then give a program? So I started coaching these two women who were actually friends of mine. And pretty quickly, each of them said to me, have you ever thought about being a book coach? And I said, no. Is there a need? Is it a thing? And they said, oh yeah, definitely. There's definitely a need. So many people want to write a book, but they have no clue how to get started. They have no clue as to the process. Or maybe they do start and then they get stuck and they don't know how to get it across the finish line. They said there's absolutely a need. So I gave my program for the chapter, and these are people who've known me for years, and many of them came up to me afterwards and said, have you ever thought about being a book coach? So that was in the spring of 2013, and by January of 2014 I launched my new business.
And so that was 2014 launch. What's happened since then?
Oh, it's just been amazing. I have helped more than 230 professionals become published authors. It has been The most fun I have ever had. I'm working with really smart, interesting people, people who have a passion for their area of expertise. They want to write, but they don't know how. I'm helping them create a bucket list dream, do something that they are so proud of. And I'm helping partner with them to do that in the world. I say, authors change the world one word at a time. And I really do believe that. And I get to help do that. And it's so much fun.
That's pretty cool. And I know I share the same thing with the quality of your client is the quality of your business. And when you really love your client, just as a human that you would want to interact with every day, anyways, it makes business so much more fun and so much more enjoyable. For you, where do you see this industry going? I know since Amazon released the Kindle way back when, and the evolution of technology, how do you see the paperback book evolving? And I love paperback books. There's something about holding it in your hand that it's different than an Audible or an audiobook. I do think those help in some ways where you don't have to be sitting down for it. You can be in the gym, walking, whatever. But how do you see those kind of trends and patterns with tech and authors and book writing?
I think there will always be a need for books. And I think how we consume books will probably be evolving as time goes on. I think there will always be folks who like to have their book that they can hold in their hand and they can take their highlighter and underscore. And so there'll always be those folks. There'll be folks like me. I like when I travel, I like to take my Kindle or, my Nook, and I like to take books on the go with me. So I think there will always be a need for that. And then I'm finding that more and more folks love the fact that a commute is much more fun when you've got a book plugged in to make the time go faster and to learn and be entertained as you drive. So I think there will be all of these formats, plus some that we probably haven't even thought of yet.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually a really interesting way to look at it. For the speaker out there that you kind of touched on it earlier, you said it's never too early. It's also never too late to write a book. When is the right time for someone that's on this career speaker path to decide, okay, hey, you know what? Now I'm going to write a book.
Well, I think you do need to have some clarity about what your message is. What is your core message? And you also need to have a vision for where you want to go. I'm a big believer that a book will take you where you want to go. So be careful about what you write because it will take you there. So if you've been doing something and it's been something you could write a book about super easy, but it's not where you want to go, it's your future is somewhere else, then certainly don't write that book. Even though that could be the easy low hanging fruit, I don't think it will give you the results that you want. So think about the aspirational direction that you'd like your career to go, that you'd like your focus, your thought leadership to go, and write in that direction. And once you have some clarity around that, around the topic, around the focus, then it's probably time to start putting it together. And I'd love to work with clients to help them get clarity about those strategic elements of their book, because most of my clients are not just writing to be writing. They're writing as a strategy to grow their business, to grow their platform, to grow their ministry. But they have this bigger vision for what they want to do in the world. And their book is a vehicle for getting them there. So being very strategic about the planning process. And that's where I think working with someone like me can be very helpful for that author who wants to write as a business growth strategy.
Interesting. And do you have any stories from the 200 plus clients you have as far as how they chose to kind of leverage that new asset that they worked with you to build?
Yeah, gosh, there's so many stories. I'm thinking just immediately of Ruth Rathblot, who is a member of the National Speakers Association. She had done a TEDx talk and had done really well, and was opening lots of doors, but she kept hearing people ask, "So, where's your book? When's the book coming out?" There's an expectation that as you reach a certain level of your speaking career in your thought leadership career, that you're going to have the book. So she decided that she would work with a book coach because she'd worked with a TEDx coach. She'd worked with a speech coach for her speech. And she said, so I should work with a book coach. And so it's been really, really fun. And I've talked to her quite a bit recently about what this has done. Her book is single-handedly, and she was born with a limb difference. So the story is about her unhiding and getting out there in the world. And this notion, her message of belonging and unhiding are certainly related. It has really, having the book has created her as a thought leader in this new emerging space of, because it's a little bit bigger and different than just inclusion or diversity.
Right.
It's really more about belonging and hiding, because if we're honest, we're all hiding something about ourselves, and that precludes us from truly belonging at times with certain groups. And the more we stay hidden, the more we're not allowing our authentic selves to come out. But having the book allowed her to position her thought leadership in a way she had not before. It gave her additional clarity even around what her thought leadership was all about, and helped differentiate it from this broad diversity and inclusion discussion to a very narrow and unique focus.
Interesting. And did you mm, did you notice, or has she told you some of the more data points that have changed, the more specific data points, like, well, my speaking fee, Cathy, went from this to this. I was getting this amount of speaking gigs per month before. Now I'm getting this amount, and those kind of metrics?
Yeah, I don't have heard specific metrics, but I can tell you
Right.
anecdotally about what some other folks have told me.
Sure.
I've had several speakers that say, okay, I just lost a $10,000 speaking engagement because I didn't have the book. And I know
Wow.
that because they told me.
All right.
They were in contention with two other people. They had books. That was a deciding factor. To be a keynoter today, main stage presentation, you really need to have the book that gives you the credibility to get you that ticket to the stage.
That's interesting. Are you familiar with a guy named Dan Martell?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know
Sure.
him.
No problem. So he's mentioned something like that kind of happened for him. He went to a Tony Robbins business mastery event about 4 years ago, and he said, yeah, I want to get on this stage and speak at his event in the future. And he tried year after year, and the one thing that made it happen was he wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time, and then he got a place to actually speak on that stage. So it's really interesting how it's one of those things in the credibility stack that opens up those doors. From a more philosophical standpoint and business standpoint, why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's something that people do revere. I mean, the fact that you are the author. I mean, there's a reason we have the expression, she wrote the book on that. There's something really significant about having written the book. And it's no easy job to write the book. So it's this notion of mastery. It's a notion of persistence. It's a notion of passion, because it does have a certain gravitas around being an author. So I think all of those things are really contributing to this notion of being an author really is something.
Interesting. And it's cool because that is still a thing today in such a digitally focused world with social
Mhm.
media, with websites, with everything, there's still that value of, oh, I wrote a book. That's still a very valuable thing to be able to say. For the business owners out there that are listening, that they
Mhm.
do their main, 80% of their time is focused on their business, and speaking maybe is 10% of that time. What value would you see for them? I'm not sure if maybe you have some clients that are business owners that had to go through this kind of same mental pathway, this thought pattern. What would make sense for them to write a book or not write a book?
Well, I know one of my clients was selling really high value services. Their consulting engagements often were six figures or higher. And um, basically, they found that having a book was the business card. It was like sort of took the place of a proposal, even because it spelled out sort of these are the case studies that talk about how we do what we do and that can show you if we are a good fit or not. So I think that kind of example really does speak to what you're asking here.
That's super interesting. And then from a more tactical perspective, have you ever
Mhm.
heard the term? I wasn't really familiar with it until a few months back, but tofu, and not the food, but I guess it's like a slang or short form way of saying top of funnel. And I guess a lot of people use their books as the top of funnel, right? Where
Mhm.
that's the first thing they buy. You see an ad, you buy the book, you read the book, you feel like you get to know the person, then it's okay. I know them. I know, Russell Brunson does this, Tony Robbins does this, and then after you read the
Yes.
book, you feel like you kind of know them a little bit more. Maybe you follow their socials, and then from there, maybe they promote an event or they promote a product, and you kind of go down that entire funnel. Do you notice any of your clients, they write the book to, I guess, scale building a relationship with their clients, if that
Absolutely.
makes
I think
sense?
that is probably the number one reason that many of my clients are writing the book is they want to have that pipeline strategy of here's a low value way, you pay 20 bucks or whatever, you get to know me, you get to know my thought leadership, you get to know if you like me, if my values align with yours, you get to know a lot of that in a book. And then you can move up the ladder in terms of additional higher and higher value services. So absolutely. In fact, most of my authors will talk about this while we talk. I mean, book sales are still important, but that's really not the end game for most of my clients. The end game is that high value product or service that they're ultimately offering, and the book is a vehicle to get them there.
Interesting. And do you notice that with the majority of your clients that they're writing a book not to sell a book, but to rather introduce themselves to someone?
Yes. Yes. I,
Very
I think
interesting.
that is the most effective way to write a book and get value back. The ROI is not from the book, the sale of the book. The ROI comes from the higher value service that you're now able to sell, the person that's in your pipeline who is now a fan and will follow you and will buy
Right.
from you. Yes.
And that's actually really interesting for that bridge between the person buying the book
Hmm.
and being a client of their highest ticket product or service they offer. What does that journey normally look like with some of your clients that are more the majority of your clients? What does that journey look like?
Well, sometimes it can go from buy the book to boom, high value
Really?
service. Yeah, it can.
Wow.
I've seen it in my own world. Someone buys one of my books, they call me, we have a strategy call, and they want to buy my big coaching package because they see the value in what it could do for their businesses. And I'm thinking about one author who was she was still employed, but she was getting ready to plan her escape from corporate America. And she knew that having the speech, the book, all of those things lined up would be what would help her business take off. And wow, her business, She wrote her book, I don't know, some 6 or so years ago, and her career is just off and running because she has established herself as that thought leader in this case, the diversity and inclusion space.
Awesome. And I know I had a mentor of mine from way long ago, about 5 years back. He ended up writing a book called Level Up, and one of my pals who's actually in Bali right now sent me a photo of it. And the mentor, he lives in, I think, Austin now. So the question I had was, what does the distribution look like to write a book in Austin, Texas, and then it being sold in retail shops in places like Bali? What does the book distribution look like?
Yeah, and I'm not the publisher, so I'm not sure I'm the best in terms of being informed on that. But I know that my book, even on Amazon, has sold internationally. So even just with Amazon distribution, you can be an international bestseller.
Wow. And so you mentioned publishers. Once someone writes the book, do they have to get it published, or what does that kind of look like? I'm not really familiar
Yes.
with that process.
Yeah, so that is where I have a publishing partner. I'm not a publisher. I'm a developmental editor, but not a copy editor, line editor. So I have found a publishing partner that I love, adore, and my clients do too. I don't work exclusively with this company, but many of my clients work with him, and it's a fee for service model or a hybrid model where you pay X dollars, and then you get in exchange for that a whole smorgasbord of services for getting your book across the finish line. Everything from editing to formatting to book cover to internal layout to Amazon bestseller launch.
Wow. And how do you see AI impacting book writing?
I think AI is a wonderful tool. I have been using it faithfully for over a year now because I thought, as a book coach, I just need to know what's going on in the AI world. So far, I have primarily used it as a marketing tool to help market book sales, not so much in the writing of books, but even, sometimes, yeah, the concepts you want to position. I'll give you an example. I was doing a presentation, doing it in this month, and I had titled it, you've published your book, now what? And I thought that was pretty good. But I have a mastermind group, and my mastermind colleagues said, nah, you can make that stronger. Of course, I'm at a loss. I see that as a perfectly good title. So I go to AI, though, and say, this is what the course is going to be about. Can you give me a better title? And the one it came up with is Maximize the Business Potential of Your Book. Oh,
Hmm.
no, or understand the business, unlock the business potential of your book. Unlock the
Wow.
business potential of your book. Yeah. And it was like, oh my gosh, that's so much stronger than I've published my book. Now what?
Hmm.
It's much more focused. There's more drive. Most of my clients are asking really that question. I've written this book. I've poured in a lot of time and energy. So how do I get my ROI from that? And that's what I wanted to come up with. And then I knew the topics I wanted to cover, but again, I can write good, solid copy, but it's not really pizzazzy like you want to write for marketing copy. So
Hmm.
I said, put this together in a way that adds some sizzle, adds some pizzazz, and it came back with some great pizzazz that I'm using. In fact, I just sent out my April newsletter, and I'm promoting this master class, a special 2-hour master class, and we'll see what kind of response I get.
Cool. And how is marketing a book different than marketing other services or products in your business, or is it the same?
That's the same. It really is. It really is. But I love some of the ways that you can creatively use AI. For example, one of my authors was trying to figure out if she titled her book the right title. And I'll even pull it off the shelf here for you. She ended up titling it, Unbranded, Emerge
Cool.
a Brand New You. Love it, love it. So when Henrietta and I sat down to map out her book, and we had a VIP writing experience together, she said, I'm not sure if this is the right title. And I said, I'm not sure if it is or not, but I said, let's ask ChatGPT if it's the right title. I said, Henrietta Pepper has written a new book titled Unbranded, Emerge a Brand New You. Please write a summary description of this new book. That's all I said. I didn't say it has this topic or this anything. That was it. And it came up with the description of her book. So we knew that that was going to be the perfect title, because she knew she liked the title anyway. And then AI confirmed that that's what we would surmise from that title.
That is interesting. Do you think the business owners and thought leaders that you work with, how adept with AI do you notice they are right now? And do they have that at the front of their mind when they go about that journey writing the book with you?
A lot of my clients who are already speakers and entrepreneurs, primarily solopreneurs, I would say they're reading up on AI, they're playing with it, they're trying new things with it. I know in my mastermind group, we're all solopreneurs and they're all experimenting. And then we're sharing sort of what we learn, and then we're all sort of marveling at what it can do. So yeah, I think that business leaders, I don't have as good a sense of what their experience, but I think solopreneurs know that this is a way that we can multitask, or, without hiring a lot of people, we can get a lot more work done a lot more quickly by using some of the tools that are available to us with AI.
What do you consider the difference between a solopreneur and entrepreneur is?
I think of a solopreneur as pretty much, no staff, or maybe a VA, a virtual assistant, but, a bare bones operation like I am. I'm a solopreneur. It's just me. I have no staff. I don't intend to have any staff, and that's the model I've chosen. So a lot of my authors tend to be solopreneurs, but not exclusively.
Interesting. Well, I know we're coming close on time here. Is there anything from all of your years of experience with this very valuable and specific skill set that you've developed that you think would be important to share with the aspiring speaker, the professional speaker, or the business owner that speaks as a function of their business?
Well, I really do believe that there is nothing that you can do that will be more impactful for your thought leadership, for your business, than writing a book, writing the right book. And so to start with that strategic vision of how you're going to integrate your book into your business. So how is it going to be positioned in your funnel, and how is it going to work within the funnel and the sales system that you have? It's not just a bucket list, check it off the list kind of an item. It's something you're going to put in a lot of sweat equity, a lot of time and effort. So be sure that you're writing the right book that will help grow your business in the way that you'd like your business to move.
Interesting. Well, thank you for that. Let's say I'm a listener here and I have gotten so much value listening to you. Where can I find you outside of this podcast?
Well, my website is cathyfyock.com. So just my name.com. And folks can either go there, or they can just drop me an email at cathyfyock.com. And I'd love to schedule a complimentary strategy session. Just mention that you heard me on this podcast, And I would welcome a chance to talk with you about your book idea and how a book could benefit you.
Beauty. Well, if you're listening here and you have any friends that you would want to share this with, that you guys think should write a book or take these next steps, please share this episode with them. Give them the information that they need to really get the clarity on what this process would look like for them, and how, even though in their head it might seem like a Mount Everest, but in reality, they're just missing a Cathy Fyock. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. Cheers.